Good evening, everyone. Hello, and welcome to these three sessions of the introduction to the Project Management Risk Management Professional or Risk Management Professional PMI-RMP, actually. So we will have three sessions starting today. These sessions will repeat every Monday at the same time, 7 p.m. GMT +1 Tunisia time. Okay, and the purpose of these sessions is to introduce you to the Risk Management Professional certification, help you understand what it takes, to prepare for this certification and pass the exam. Okay, so actually it's 7 p.m. sharp right now, so we can start. So hello and welcome everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ahmed Ben Hamoud. I'm a project management expert with almost 18 years of experience, international experience in project management. I've worked for large companies in different project management roles, such as project manager, program manager, product owner, scrum master, agile coach, etc., etc. All right. So this program, the program actually of these three free sessions will be as following. In today's session, we will understand, the most important thing we understand today is the examination content outline. Since ECO is the most important thing in any certification you'd like to take from PMI certifications, whether it's PMP, RMP, ACP, CAPM, etc., you always need to make sure that you're familiar with the ECO. You know very well what your exam will be about, what are the different topics or domains of the exam, the different tasks and enablers, and also the different reference material which you can count on during your preparations or can use during your preparations. Okay, so in session one, in today's session one, we will go through how the prerequisites for the RMP certification, how to submit your your RMP. Sorry, I'm still with PMP. How to submit your RMP certification, and then we will go through the ECO in details. I will highlight in the ECO which things we will see in these free introduction sessions, and which things or which items, which enablers and tasks we will see in the or people can see with us in the full training. Okay, and also I'll present to you the important books which you can use for your preparation. Okay. Now that's for session one. For session two, we're going to do something really nice, which is I will be sharing with you the most important part of the risk management content uh, based on the feedback from our PMP students. Like, a lot of our PMP students, they also took the RMP test, and they told us that actually the content we have in our PMP course for risk management, it helped them with it was enough for more than 60% of the content required for the RMP certification. Some of them said even up to 80-90% actually. Okay, because actually we have such a really good content for risk management in our PMP course. So session two will be, we will take in details different techniques and tools for risk identification, risk types, risk analysis, whether it's qualitative, quantitative, advanced analysis, and dealing with risks, responding to risks. Okay, and we will go really in deep details in session two. Okay, and in session three, actually, what we will do is I will present you the risk management guide, and also we will have tens and tens of questions from the RMP. Related to the RMP course. Okay, so this is our plan and program for these three sessions. Of course, in order to prepare for your RMP certification, you will need between 30 and 40 hours of training, which you can get with us. Whenever we announce, we have a group for the full risk management course. Okay, So stay tuned. You will find really a lot of helpful content in these 3 free sessions, and definitely if you would like to undertake the full 30 or 40. I say 30 or 40 because really it depends. I will show you in a moment why we say once 30 when we say 40. If you would like to take the full course of RMP, actually you can do that, and just contact us directly. We can provide you with our own full course of risk management professional certification. Okay, so all right, so let's kick it off. Let's start. Okay, so if you're interested in taking your risk management professional certification, which is one of PMI's, let's say, famous certifications, is quite popular for people working in risk management, generally in risk management, in particular in project risk management. Okay, and actually in session 2, in next week's session, we will explain the little difference, between project risk management and general risk management, like general risk management practices in a company. But if you're interested in the RMP certification, just whether it's because you already got your PMP certification and you want to enlarge or expand your knowledge in one of the project management areas, such as scheduling, because PMI has got a specific certification for scheduling called PMI-SP, or risk management like the PMI-RMP, or agile such as the PMI-ACP. Actually, all what you need to do is just visit PMI's website, head over to certifications, and here you have the list of specialized certifications. Here you have core certifications, which are the CAPM, PMP, PGMP for program management professionals, portfolio management professionals. And then here you have the specialized certifications again. So because people always thought that RMP, is this the next step after PMP? No. These are the core certifications in here. So CAPM is a core certification for entry level, for beginners in project management. Okay. Then you have PMP, which is the world's most famous certification. And then you have PGMP and then PFMP. So these are core certifications, okay? Then the others here in the middle, these are specialized certifications. Like, for example, if you work in construction, you can specialize you can opt for the PMI-CP, construction professional. If you work in, an agile environment where, different agile approaches, methodologies, frameworks are utilized, are applied, actually you can go for the ACP, Agile Certified Practitioner. If you're specialized in risk management in your projects or in your organization, you can opt for the PMI-RMP, the PMI Risk Management Professional, or you have the Business Analysis Professional Certification, or the PMO Certified Practitioner, or the scheduling professional, or now it's quite trendy to go for artificial intelligence. So actually you can go for the cognitive project management for artificial intelligence, etc., etc., etc. So actually PMI keeps amusing us by keeping up with the trends, actually leading the world in creating updated content for their different certifications, and also new certifications with content that follows the trends in the market. So actually for the PMI RMP, you can just click in here, whether you're a PMI member or not. So actually I'm a PMI member, so I will show you in a while. So let me start with non-members. Okay, so actually here you can see you have here the PMI RMP, the risk management professional. So you need to have around 3 to 5 years of experience. The exam's length is 115 questions. We will see in details later on, and it's about 2.5 hours, okay, or 2.5 hours. Okay, you can take this exam actually in 3 languages: English, Arabic, and so you just click here, in here, and it will show you that you can take the exam in English, Arabic, and simplified Chinese. So PMI RMP's price, okay, for members is 364, and I will show you in a moment. So it's 364 for members. The full price is $670. You can apply in here. We will talk about this later, okay, actually, and you can actually view the exam content outline, which that's what we're going to do today because it's really, really important. I'm going to go through the ECO today in details, okay, and I will highlight to you which things we will see in session 2 and 3 and which actually parts you can find in our full course, okay. And then you can just continue reading on the PMI RMP. You can have here actually the PMBOK guide. You can download it in case you are a member, okay. And here what was released in 2024 this year is actually the risk management in portfolios, programs, and projects, the practice guide first edition, which was released this year. So actually, if I click on learn more, okay, and I go in here, it says, are you a member? If yes, if you're a member, you can download it. If you're not a member, then you can purchase it, okay. So actually, I am a member of PMI, so all what I need to do is just, I will click on login, okay. It will show my login details. Actually, I'll just log in, and I am a member, so like I pay my yearly membership to PMI. So you see, if I go down and then I click on learn more. So let me just remove this, and I click on learn more for the guide for risk management. Actually, what it says is download. You can see now the buttons changed for me because actually I am a member. So it says you have access to this because you're a PMI member. To become a member is not really that costly. It's like for developing countries is around $109 a year. You can actually get it even for less than that. You can get some discounted membership if you're a student, professional with a card of a student, because a lot of professionals, they have a card for students, or just talk to PMI, ask them if there are any special discounts if you are from Tunisia, Egypt, Algeria, India, or any developing countries, or just use some of the promo codes. Okay, all right. So I see I can actually download it. I can download it in English language. It's the only version available right now. And I know that PMI are working actually on translating this guide to more languages, mainly Arabic, because actually the risk management certification, the RMP, is quite popular in the Gulf region. Okay, so actually Saudi Arabia, I think, is ranked number 1 in the world, in terms of countries interested in the RMP certification. Okay, and actually it's one of the fastest growing regions for this certification. All right, okay, so this is how you start off, and then you can join, of course, the PMI study hall for RMP, and actually you can find a lot of useful material in the study hall. You can join some of PMI study hall. It costs $49. Actually, you can add it to cart, and in the study hall, you can find a lot of questions, some learning material, etc. So definitely, you can do that for questions. Okay, so this is what you get with your PMI study hall. So you have, one full exam, 3 mini exams, 50 questions. Per domain, I think. Premium webinars, learning plan, lessons, videos. Of course, these are not full course, but actually you can do that, okay, if you're interested. Okay, so this is just to help you out, with understanding. I always recommend to people because a lot of people are interested in PMI certifications. So actually, I tell them, spend some time on PMI's website, learn a little bit about PMI, their certifications, because PMI has got all the information on their website. And actually, this website version you see right now, it's quite new. It was released 1.5 months ago. Okay, so actually, PMI just updated their website, so you can find really a lot of useful information about any again, we go back, any of the core certifications, okay, mainly the PMP and the others, or the specialized certifications. Okay, All right, so this is regarding the website. This is regarding which information you can find on PMI's website. And as you can see here, so the risk management guide is free for members. The PMBOK guide is free for members. Just the study hall, you just pay $49 for it. And now, if you go back here and you go to apply, okay, and this is quite easy actually. I will do a separate video about it actually. So for you guys, if you're interested, so in between the sessions, either between this session and the next one, or between the second and the fourth, actually you can see in here that once you click on apply, it is quite similar to the application of the PMP, which we showed, in a separate video earlier this year, how to apply for the PMP. It's quite similar, almost the same template actually, so you need to fill out 36 months of experience. All right. So you just put the job title, the organization, job project title, organization, job title. You can be a project manager. So definitely we recommend like a project manager or risk management coordinator. That's you can put like, whatever job title, the organization, the job title, either project manager or project risk coordinator. So we recommend definitely these two titles, or you can put there like a risk manager, okay, or a risk expert. You can also put that. Functional reporting area, organization primary focus, dates of the projects, okay, and then the experience. Now in the experience in here, you need to put really a high level description of your experience on project risk management. Remember this, on project risk management. So in here, okay, usually a response is between 200 to 500 words, so not really that quite long. Okay, PMI is not that demanding. Now here, the experience you put in here, it's good to show that you manage the risks in projects. So you need to talk about which tools and techniques did you use for identifying risks, how did you analyze the risks, which tools and techniques again you used, how did you prioritize risks. If, for example, you have built a risk matrix, or you are using a risk breakdown structure, or for example you are using some tools such as a SWOT to identify positive and negative risks, and then how did you set, or how was the risk threshold set? Then, for those prioritized risks, how did you further analyze them, like qualitatively and quantitatively? Okay, which techniques did you use? Did you apply, Monte Carlo technique? Did you use like the expected monetary value? Did you, use some, for example, decision tree analysis or alternative analysis, what if scenario, etc., etc. So you really, you can specify which tools and techniques did you use for your analysis, and then how did you decide which risks you respond to, then how did you create your risk register, how did you, create a response plan to the prioritized risks, and now how did you assign a risk owner, and how did you follow on the risk mitigation plan or action plan, how did you report on risks, how did you engage with your stakeholders, how were you proactive in managing risks, etc. So this is what PMI would like to see in the experience summary in here. When you're describing your experience in the projects, it's not the same experience you have put for your PMP projects. For your PMP projects, we've talked about everything in the project, like how did you do your project initiation, your project planning, how did you lead your team, how did you execute, monitor and control. What did you do with procurement, with measuring the project performance, dealing with the project risks, communications, resources, quality, etc. And here, you need to focus on risks. Okay, so that's why actually the required words are 200 to 500 words. They're not that many. All right, but you need to focus on risks in here. Okay, so and we will talk about the prerequisites in a while. All right, so once you have filled out your experience, actually you will move on, because actually PMI knows my education. Okay, they know what kind of education I have, since I'm a member of PMI, I think, like for maybe probably now 15 years, maybe, I don't know, maybe around 15 years. I'm a member of PMI, so they know what is my education level. So actually they just need to know about my experience, and then the exam details, and I confirm. We will go back to this. I will do a separate video about this, and actually I will give you a template, guys, to fill out for your RMP application, and you can just copy from that template, make any necessary changes to the information in it, because your project, your experience in here should start with the description of the project objective in 1 or 2 lines, and then you need to describe actually what did you do in regards to the risk management in the different projects you worked on, and mainly, as I said, as a project manager or as a project risk coordinator or a risk manager, etc. All right. Okay, so actually, we will be talking about this in the next. I will be making a video about this maybe this week, and I will be releasing it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel as usual, before the next session. Okay, so we will come back to this in a separate video. Now, before starting the most important part of today's session, let me remind you that this session we've started it exactly at 7 p.m. We will finish around 10 p.m. and we will have a 10-minute break in between. So we will have a 10-minute break after probably like 1 hour and 20 minutes, like at 8 and 8 at 20 p.m. Okay, 8 and 20 and 20 p.m. Actually, we will have a break of 10 minutes. We will resume at 8:30, and then we'll continue almost until 10 p.m. Okay, GMT +1 Tunisia time. All right. So this is what I wanted to share with you. I've shared with you the program of these 3 sessions. I've showed you, what to find on PMI's website. I've just introduced you a little bit, that how you can start your PMP application. We will have a separate video about this, which I will release during this week. And now, let me just show you quickly the material which we'll be using during these 3 sessions. So for today's session, actually, we'll go through the ECO. It's extremely important to understand, what's in the ECO, what does it talk about, etc. And then we will use the risk management part from our PMP full course material. Actually, our risk management content and the PMP course, it's really quite good. And our PMP participants who have, taken the RMP certification, they told us that actually our risk management chapter, it was enough to cover 60% to more than 80% of what was on the exam. Okay, and also we will go through the risk management guide. So we will also go through this risk management guide, which was released this year. Okay, it's from actually 2024. We will go through not all of it. Actually, I will just go through the table of content, because big part of this risk management guide is actually we're going to see it in session 2, and then finally in session 3 we will do practice tests. Okay, we will do tens and tens of questions, which you will find really helpful for your RMP preparation. Okay, so this is what we will do. So I'll just put this on a bigger size, okay, just to help see it better. But actually we will see this later in this session. Once we're done with the ECO, actually we will go through the guide, okay, which is quite important to go through it. Okay, so and I showed you earlier where to find the guide, and yeah, so this is actually for you guys. All right, now let's go and let's start. Now, like any other certification on PMI's website, actually for every certification there is an ECO. Now, this ECO for the PMI-RMP, which was released, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, updated January 2023. Actually, the RMP is not a new certification for PMI. So since 2008, actually, if I remember well, since 2008, 2007, when I joined PMI, I know PMI has got, besides the PMP, there was this SP, Scheduled Professional, and RMP. So, but PMI keeps updating the ECO, and now this is the latest version from last year, I think, or yeah, maybe it was released at the end of last year, earlier this year. Okay, now let's move on. Let's move on. And before we go to the content of the ECO, let me first of all show you the content of the RMP exam, and then we will go down in this document to show you the prerequisites so we can understand them really well, and then we go back and see the content of the ECO. So the RMP exam actually has got 5 domains. Okay, first domain is the risk strategy and planning, and we will talk about this in details, okay, and how to plan for your risk management, defining your risk management plan, your risk matrix, etc. That's 22% of the exam. And then, how to identify risks, techniques for risks identification, proactive risk identification, etc. We will see this in details, and tools and techniques for identifying risks. That's 23% of the exam. Analyzing risks qualitatively and more advanced analysis like quantitative analysis and different analyzing tools, software, and techniques. That's 23% of the exam. How to respond to risks, both positive risks and negative risks, opportunities and threats. That's 13% of the exam. And then, how to monitor your risks, how to monitor the efficiency of the risk response, and then how to close risks. And, also, we will see also the residual risks, the secondary risks, etc. And this is 19% of the exam. So actually, these are the 5 domains of the RMP certification. We will go through each one of these domains with the respective tasks and the respective enablers for each one of these domains. Now, let's go down in this ECO. Actually, we will skip the ECO for a moment. And now let's go down here to the PMI-RMP application process and eligibility. All right. Now, in order to be eligible for this RMP certification, so it's the same as with the PMP. You need to have a minimum number of years as a professional, plus you need to have certain certifications. All right. Now, remember something very important. Whatever experience you will record in your RMP application, it has to be, it should have been occurred within the last 5 consecutive years. Now, if we are right now at the end of 2024, it means you cannot, for example, record experience from 2018. Okay, now you can record experience from 2024, 2023, 2022, 2021, and 2020. Okay, the last 5 consecutive years. All right, you cannot record experience from 2019, 2018, 2017. Actually, this same problem happens with some of our students in the PMP training also. For example, I remember just this week, one of our training participants wanted to record a project which they have managed between 2013 and 2016, and that's too old. It's not acceptable, right? Now, for the education, in case you have a secondary diploma, like a high school diploma or a 2 years university degree or global equivalent, then you need to have at least 36 months, spent in the specialized area of professional risk management. You see, it's about professional project risk management. So you need to prove that you have applied risk management on projects within the last 5 consecutive years. Okay, so in here, actually, and also you need to prove that you have 40 contact hours of formal education in the specialized area of project risk management. Okay, in case you have a 4-year degree, which is a bachelor's degree or global equivalent, such as, for example, a 3-year bachelor's degree in European standards, then you need to have minimum of 24 months spent again in the project risk management. Remember, we're mainly talking about managing risks on projects, okay? And you need to prove that you have completed 30 contact hours of formal education in project risk management, okay? So actually the course which we have prepared and created for you, it contains those 40 or 30 contact hours, and it's quite interesting course, really quite comprehensive course, which contains, all, the 5 domains plus practice, plus practice exercises, plus practice questions, etc. So it's really quite, interesting, quite detailed course. Because in the exam of RMP, you will need to prove not just that you have managed and dealt with risks, but actually have also dealt and managed, stakeholders and few other parts of the project. Okay, in case you have a postgraduate degree, then you need to prove that you have 12 months experience spent in the risk management. Project risk management, plus those 30 contact hours of formal education in the specialized area of project risk management, which means you need to have to prove that you have actually followed a risk management professional training. Okay. All right, now that's one thing. Now again, here PMI explains to you where you can submit your application. So actually, you can go back to PMI's website as we have shown you earlier. All right. Now, yeah, let's go down in here. All right. All right. So I will show you in a separate video actually how you can create your RMP, sorry, your RMP application. These are the types of trainers you can or training companies you can have the training from. So almost everyone, like an ATP or training company or training schools such as ours, okay, or company sponsored programs, or even some university, college, academic, and continuing education programs. Okay, you can also have some distant learning companies, etc. Okay, but just reading the books, that does not qualify. So the following education does not satisfy the education requirements, such as self-directed learning. For example, just reading books or watching some instructional videos. Actually, instructional videos are not enough. Okay, we don't mean recorded videos. We don't mean recorded videos from training companies. That means just instructional videos. All right. Now, once once you can take the test 3 times. Of course, they are paid. Second and third time, in case you fail the first time, they're paid. They're not for free. Now, you will have 115 questions in your RMP exam with a total examination time of 2.5 hours. Now, during these 2.5 hours, actually, you're entitled for a 10-minute break. You can take a 10-minute break once you have completed almost 58 questions. Okay, almost approximately 50. After completing almost 58 questions, you can take a 10-minute break, and you can take the exam in a test center. Okay, the same test centers where you take your PMP exam, those are exactly the same test centers. You just once your RMP application is accepted and you pay for the RMP exam, you can just go next on PMI's website. It will show you the test centers, prometric centers, where you can actually take your RMP exam. You can take it in uh, test center, or you can take it at home, and you can take a 10-minute break between the questions. All right. Okay, before you start the examination, you will have a tutorial which will explain to you the software is the same exact software used for the PMP. Okay, and then you will have a survey at the end. Okay, and both will take up to 15 minutes to complete. Okay, I think that's it. You can retake the exam in case you have failed your first attempt. You are entitled for 3 attempts in total within one calendar year. Okay. All right, now let's come to some, so an important part in order to understand the RMP certification really well and really in details. Now, which reference materials PMI recommends, for taking the RMP certification? Now, you have PMI says here that exam candidates should be aware that the RMP's examination is not written according to any single text or any single book, actually. Okay, and PMI does not endorse a specific, course resources. You can actually take the training with whatever company you want. Okay. However, here down or below here, PMI actually states some of the references. Okay, so it says here, the references identified herewith are an element of a broader set of educational resources and texts you might possibly be using for your exam study and preparation. Now, of course, the risk management in portfolios, programs, and projects practice guide, which was released this year, okay, from PMI. You can also, go through the PMBOK guide, which is a guide to the project management of knowledge, PMBOK guide 7th edition from PMI. And here you have 4 more reference books are not the only ones, but these are the ones PMI mentioned in here. There is this practical project risk management, the ATOM methodology, 3rd edition by David Hilson and Peter Simon. You have Identifying and Managing Project Risk, 3rd edition by Tom Kendrick. Actually, Tom Kendrick is quite famous, and PMI is referencing his books even for the PMP certification. Enterprise Risk Management, today's leading research and best practices for tomorrow's executives, 2nd edition by John Fraser, Rob Quayle, and Betty Simpkins. And here you have Project Risk Management, a practical implementation approach for Michael Bissonette. Okay. So actually, these are the, let's say, not recommended by the most known and famous references, okay, for the RMP certification. And that's it, actually, So we have spent nearly 35 minutes, guys, explain to you or introducing the RMP certification to you. All right. Now we can start with the ECO. I'm quite enthusiastic, to be honest, to go through the ECO in details. And actually, guys, I'm also doing this. I'm also doing this with my PMP students. So also with my PMP students, we go, in the first session, we go through the ECO, not so much in details in the live session because I do have recorded videos about the ECO in English language and in Arabic language. So actually, I just, do some briefing, with them and then provide them with a video to watch because actually the PMP course is quite intensive and we cannot go through the ECO line by line, okay? But with you guys, it's a chance to do it. It's really quite important to do it because the ECO is what the RMP exam is based. Okay, so really the RMP exam is based on the ECO, and those reference books we just saw and mentioned, those will help you better understand the different tools and techniques and approaches for managing project risks. Okay, so please remember this. All right, now as we have mentioned earlier, the RMP exam is actually based on 5 domains: risk strategy and risk planning, identifying risks, analyzing project risks, responding to risks, monitoring risks, and closing project risks. Risks are actually ensuring that the risks have been mitigated, or if they are residual, then what to do with them, etc. All right. Now, each domain is defined at a high level knowledge area, okay, and then for each domain we will have tasks which contain the underlying responsibilities of the project risk manager, and then we will have enablers, which is an explanation and illustrative examples of what needs to be done in association with each task, such as, for example, the tools, the techniques, okay. And in this ECO, the enablers are not really exhaustive. They offer a few examples. And of course, it's up to the training company to provide you with all the, tools and techniques which you might face in your PMP, in your RMP exam. Okay. All right. Right. Now, let's start with domain number 1 in the ECO of the RMP certification. This domain number 1, actually, it contains 6, okay, if I'm not mistaken, yes, it contains 6 tasks. Okay, so here on the left, you have the tasks, and here on the right, you will have the enablers. Now, please, guys, uh, keep your seat, stay tuned, and let's start. Okay, let's start now the technical content of these free sessions. Now, the domain number one is about defining a project risk strategy and planning your project risks. Okay, here and these tasks are not in order, by the way, not necessarily in order, and doesn't mean that in the exam you'll have questions, in the order of domains and the order of the tasks. No, actually, you have to learn all the domains and their respective tasks and enablers, and those 115 questions can have actually. Questions from any task from any domain at any moment, okay, or in any part of the exam. Now, first task is about performing a preliminary document analysis, okay, understanding your project background, understanding all the surrounding details of your project. So PMI will test you in the RMP about gathering and reviewing various documents, okay, prior to identifying your risks, okay. These documents, could help you with, making an industry benchmarking, comparing with the different practices in the industry, in case you would like to get inspired, or, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, in terms of how our risks managed in a project. Also, reviewing the previous the lessons learned of the previous projects, which is quite important. And let me tell you why. Now, this is something really, really important. Now, guys, that lessons learned, they come from the issues with how they were solved in previous projects. Now, an issue is an event that has already occurred. It took place, okay? It has got negative impact, and the way the project team resolved the issue, applied the pivot or a workaround, they will have to document this in a lessons learned. So actually, that lessons learned can serve as an input for managing the risks in your new project. And if you are managing a project that is similar to an old one, those risks that have occurred in a previous project, or actually those issues which have occurred in a previous project, now as part of the lessons learned, they will serve as a risk identification source. So they will serve as a source of identifying potential risks for the current project, because the issues which occurred in the previous project, we have learned lessons from them, and we're taking precautions, or we're actually, ready, or we're just, attentive, and we're making sure that those issues will not happen again, will not occur in our current project, because we have already identified them as potential risks. Okay, now that's why lessons learned, identifying lessons, or actually going through lessons learned from previous projects, is quite important for identifying risks in the current project. Okay, also historical data from previous projects, okay, and any sources that can come from the sponsor, the project sponsor, or, in case, for example, in our current project, there are team members who've got some experience from previous projects, etc. So all of these will help us, with gathering and reviewing documents, mainly from previous projects, to, be able to better build our risk management strategy and identify our risks, okay, in the current project. Okay. Now, also, it is very important to define roles in the project. Who is responsible for determining, for collecting the preliminary documents, okay, and analyzing them? If it's going to be the project manager, the risk manager, the financial controller, or a particular team member, etc. Now, let me tell you something quite important. Maybe right now you're asking, do we really have a risk manager in every project? Not not really. Now, for example, for myself, I was always a project manager. Let's say project manager. I wouldn't go in details if it was a program manager, portfolio manager. I consider myself as a project manager, so I was always a project manager in my projects, and only really in one or two projects which were quite large, quite complex, I had a project management team, and they were helping me with managing different aspects of the project. And one of them was a person, dealing with the project risks. Their job was to oversee the project risks, conduct the risk management, not just analysis or identification, but managing the entire risk management process. Of course, under my supervision as a project manager, because really, risk management is like having or dealing with the risks in a project is like having a second project manager in a project, but just focusing on the risks and dealing with the risks. So really, it's quite important. So keep it in mind, and that's why the RMP certification is quite important. Now we are living in quite a turbulent environment, project environment, with such complex and interconnected, factors from the environment surrounding the project and the company, and with all these advancements in technology, and with the economic situation or economical situations in the different parts of the world, we really need to have more people in the project to watch after the risks, because maybe the project manager is not capable of doing that by themselves. And that's why involving the team also in identifying and managing the risks are quite important. Okay. And then, for the task one, how to establish documents relevant for the risk process. And, we can use, documents from previous projects, or we can count on document, or we can build our own documents for this current project. Okay. This is for task one. Okay, as I said, I would like to go in details on this ECO. It's really quite important to go through it. For the task two, from this first domain, is about assessing the project environment in order to identify any potential threats and any potential opportunities. Now, remember, and we will see this actually in details in the next session. Threats, these are negative risks, or risks which might have a negative potential impact, a potential negative impact on the project. And opportunities, these are events that if they occur, they will have a positive impact on the project. Okay. Now, here we will determine which of the organization's process assets, enterprise environmental factors, or project methodology are needed. So how would we like to manage this project? Is it going to be agile? Is it going to be waterfall? Is it going to be a hybrid? Okay. For managing this risk. Risks in this project, and also we need to analyze the different environmental factors which will be considered in the planning phase. And we have seen this even in our PMP training, and that's why I say that the content from our PMP training, that it really helped a lot the people while preparing for their risk management professional, and the PESTEL analysis or the SWOT analysis, which is quite famous. And actually, the SWOT is we will see it also, in the next session number 2. These are tools which will help us to consider the different factors, because PMI actually, and especially in the recent years, is actually diversifying the curriculum of projects, and which are the curriculum, or the curriculum of the natures of the projects which are considered in these certifications. Because I remember, for example, when I took my PMP exam back in 2012, most of the projects were about construction. Okay, really, I mean, most of the questions in the exam, of course, there were some definition questions which we don't have anymore now because now the exams are situational. But most of the questions back in the time when I took the PMP exam were about construction. Maybe a couple of questions, a few questions about some particular industries. Right now, the project situations and the different exams of the PMI certifications, they are about projects, business projects, political projects, non-profitable projects, industrial projects, IT projects, construction projects, banking projects, etc. etc. So PMI is diversifying really the spectrum, of the nature of the projects, because more and more people actually are taking these various certifications, and not like 20 years ago, for example, when the PMP was mainly for people working in construction. And that's why right now, for example, PMI has got this specialized certification for construction professionals. Okay. Now, also in task 2, we will see how to determine the organizational and cultural risk appetite. Okay. How mature is the organization in terms of risk management practices? Okay. And how open the organization is for the risks. There are some organizations which are risk takers with a high appetite for risks. Some organizations are risk averse. Risk averse, which means they don't take risks at all. And here, PMI does not go into this level, but I will permit myself to go into this level. Now, uh, through my experience as a project management trainer and expert, I noticed that actually the appetite for risks can be also influenced or impacted by the culture of the country where the company is. In some countries, and I will not mention them by name, to avoid any, embarrassment. Some countries, in their culture, they're known and quite famous for not being open to taking risks. Like, the project manager and the project team usually, they, don't take any decisions without having a thorough analysis, a deep analysis, evaluating all the alternatives, etc. And some other countries in their business culture, they're known, for really, taking the risk, starting an initiative or an investment or a project, even if there are quite some high risks associated with that. They don't mind. Okay, so really, it's also impacted. The company's risk culture is definitely impacted by the country's risk culture, but PMI doesn't go into that level. But I have allowed myself to go into that or deep into that. Okay. Also in task 2, we will see some, information system, how the information system actually, whether it's process or data, how the information systems, they help, the project manager and the risk manager with managing the project and the risks of the project. Now, something very important which PMI considers and is really, gives great attention to, which is analyzing the risks, analyzing the stakeholders in the project, since a lot of the risks either can come from stakeholders or can be identified by stakeholders. Okay, having a new stakeholder on a project could bring a new risk. Okay, for example, we have a list of key stakeholders on a project, and then one of the project key stakeholders was replaced by another one. So having a new key stakeholder, it could mean or there are risks to be identified. What if this new key stakeholder will have new requirements, or would like to change the structure of the product which we are building, for example, okay, or any other circumstances. So that's why understanding your project stakeholders, dealing with them is quite important and can have quite some impact. It goes the same with your environment. For example, we mentioned here the PESTEL environment. Now, the P stands for political, all right? Now, the L is for legal. Now, we have studied in our PMP course, and we have mentioned even in the tips and tricks of the PMP course, we said that, for example, when we're talking about regulations and compliance with regulations, whenever there is a new law passed on and which might impact the industry where we work and or where we have the project, whenever there is a new law, keep in mind that maybe there is a risk associated with this law. So we have put in our tips and tricks for the PMP students, for example, that whenever there is a new law, one of the first things you need to do is identify any potential risks associated with this law. Okay, for example. So, and it's the same with the stakeholders. Okay, if there is a new stakeholder, especially a key one, what are the potential risks coming with the stakeholder? Okay, now also in this task 2, we need to also to analyze any potential constraints which might impact our risk management plan in the project, such as if there are any governmental laws or regulations, any laws or rules related to the marketplace, any organizational changes which might impact us and or might be a constraint, anything coming from the environment of the company, any technical risks, organization is mentioned in here, commercial risks, etc. Okay, we will see this in the next session with the risk breakdown structure. Okay, all right. Now, you as a project manager or a risk manager or a risk management coordinator on a project, you need to make sure that you create a culture of risk awareness. Now, really, I can tell you from practice, as a project manager, that's what I always struggle with, which is creating a culture of risk awareness among my project stakeholders and my project team members. Because project stakeholders or team members often think or actually misthink that risk identification, risk management, following up with risk responses is actually the sole responsibility of the project manager, which is not, because the project manager is just one person. The project manager cannot manage all the project risks by themselves. It's impossible. The project manager cannot identify all the project risks by themselves. It's impossible. The project manager might be knowledgeable about risks in certain areas, maybe would be able to identify risks in certain parts or aspects of the project, but not all the project risks. So you as a project manager, you need to educate your project stakeholders and your project team on contributing to identifying project risks, and especially letting them know that identifying a potential project risk doesn't mean that we will assign the management of this risk to you. Okay, not necessarily. Okay, if it's assigned to you, if it is assigned to you as a risk owner, that's because you are actually the best person or the most qualified person, to watch after this risk. Okay, and that's something I always struggled with really as a project manager, because when it came to technical team members, they always complained that actually if some of them were assigned to managing and risk response, they complained that oh, they are too busy with technical work, they wouldn't have time for that. But actually they're the most qualified people to do it, and that's part of your PMP, of your RMP. Sorry again. So please excuse me if I make this mistake again, of your RMP exam. All right. Also, understanding the whole business context of the project, what drives the project from business point of view, which assumptions the project was based on, what are the expected benefits and value to be achieved, etc. So these are also important parts and aspects, because an important part of the risk management of the project is actually to watch after this, which is whether the project will make the expected business or the expected benefits or business value or not. Okay. Now, if you would notice that the project actually would not make the expected benefits and business value, then definitely you will need to raise that to the awareness and attention of the sponsor, the project sponsor, the steering committee, the management or senior level management, etc. And that's really important. Now, remember, guys, now whether you were one of our PMP students or not, whether you know project management or not, if you are new to risk management or not, just remember something really important. And I remember saying this a few years ago in one of our risk management courses. I said clearly that um, every second we live, or in every second we live, there could be tens and tens newborn risks. Okay. However, 99% or more of these risks die immediately at their birth. Why? Because they haven't got triggers. Okay, or maybe they're with very, very, very low probability and very, very, very low potential impact, and we don't consider them at all, especially that they're missing a trigger or they're actually very low risks. Okay, really, like every second could bring new risks with it. However, thank God, 99% or more of these risks are actually eliminated immediately at their birth. Only those risks with a trigger and with an important, I wouldn't say a significant probability or impact, but actually which qualify for qualitative analysis before even moving on to quantitative analysis. Only those risks which qualify for qualitative analysis and with reliable data are actually considered as part of the project risk management plan. Okay. Now, task 3 in this first domain is about confirming the risk thresholds, of course, based on the risk appetites. And this part in here, I will make sure that I will emphasize on it really well in during next week's session. Okay, so defining the risk thresholds is very important. Whether these thresholds come from the organizational process assets or from the project governance, okay, or directly from the stakeholders, but definitely we need to know in the project what are the thresholds. Once they are reached, then we need to create a risk response. Okay. And usually, the project risk thresholds, they should be aligned with the organization risk appetite. As I said, the OPA. Okay, then how much of risk of a risk can the organization absorb, whether it's like financial. For example, imagine the company is intending on investing somewhere, okay, in a new company, in a new country, but the political situation in that country is not quite stable. Okay, so actually the investment is quite appealing. Financially, it could be really, quite remunerating, but the investment is quite risky because there could be a coup at any moment in that country. So, is the organization ready to take that risk or not? Okay. For example, environmental also, in case, for example, a risk that is not respecting the environmental laws, and yet it's quite important for the company, for example, to launch or create those products and launch them. How much the company is ready to take the risk, also on the levels of scope, technical, legal, schedule, quality. Contracts are quite an important source for identifying risks. Okay. And the exam you will see in the third session, because we said that in the third session we'll go through some practice tests, quite some good practice tests actually from the RMP exam. You will like them, you will enjoy them, guys. Really stay tuned. I'm also very enthusiastic about them, because contracts can be an important source of of risks. For example, if we're dealing, for example, if we have a sole source contract. What does a sole source contract? It's a contract with only one provider, even though there are multiple providers in the market, but our company deals only with that particular provider for whatever reasons. Could be historical reasons, etc. So here we're creating. Actually, we're given risks or an opportunity for more risks to appear, because actually we're only dealing with that, or our company will deals only with that particular provider, and these could create new risks for us. For example, technologically also, in case we don't follow up with the trends, or we're not up to date with the technology, or we're not um, following with our competitors, the absence of proactive approach with the market or the technology could lead to create the appearance of new risks. Okay, so here also in this task we will go also in the full course, in the full training, we'll go through resolving the conflicts among stakeholders in order to agree on the levels of risk appetite. Okay, how much actually is insignificant and how much is acceptable and what is not acceptable. We go through in details, high level details actually during next session number 2. Okay. Then, how to establish a risk management strategy, how to establish risk processes and tools, how to build a risk management plan, a risk matrix, which templates to use, and of course, definitely we will go through the risk register in the next session. The guys, the ones of you who have joined our PMP training, they're quite good with managing and updating the risk register, and even the ones who have joined our project management in practice program, which was for free in starting end of September until almost end of November. And we had a particular session about risk management, but it was very, very general and very high level, not like these sessions. Okay, and setting up risk metrics. Okay, how to know these risk metrics to report on later on in your project, because something very important which you do as a project manager, which is reporting on your project. And you remember very well, guys, whether from our PMP training, whether from our free project management in practice program, we have mentioned many times that in our project reports, whether a detailed report or a high-level report, we always have included a section for reporting on the risks. So definitely you need to know how to report on your risks, which metrics you have put in place, etc. So we will go through that. Okay. Identifying the different risk categories, coming from your risk breakdown structure, for example, whether it's internal risk, external risk, commercial risk, managerial risk, operational risk, technical risk, etc. Okay, and here I've talked about this earlier about how to coach or mentor your team on being involved in the risk management process, and also how to assume responsibility or take responsibility with you in managing in identifying and managing the different risks in the project. Okay, and here PMI favors the servant leadership mindset and style. Okay, where because for example in agile, the team, actually the self-organized and self-managed team, they're the ones mainly responsible for identifying technical risks. For example, the product owner could be responsible for identifying business related risks, or value related risks, or customer related risks, but the technical team, usually they are the ones responsible for identifying technical risks. Okay, generally. All right. And how to make sure that both the team and the stakeholders are following the risk strategy set for the project. Okay. Task 5 in the first domain is about documenting the risk management plan. Of course, here defining the roles and responsibilities, as I have mentioned earlier, is quite important. Usually, this is described in the resource assignment matrix, such as the RASI matrix, which stands for responsible, accountable, consult with, and to be informed. Okay. I might have a separate video about this one. The same like with the SWOT. Okay. Which other key artifacts or resources which should be used in order, to compile a risk management plan. We will talk about that actually. Now, also we need to know, who will be doing what in the risk management activities, when and where and how. Okay, that's quite important for you to prepare as a risk manager or as a project manager. I have already mentioned the risk breakdown structure. We will see an example and the template, okay, which is part of the risk management plan. Uh, Now, something new with the RMP certification, which is the risk management plan. Now, the guys who have joined our PMP training, they know very well. You probably guys, if you have joined our PMP training before, when we talked about meetings in a project and the frequency of the meetings. You remember when I told you that usually in waterfall projects we have these weekly status meetings, and then I told you, and usually in my projects, me as Ahmed, as a project management practitioner, I usually have a separate meeting for risks, which I call the risk management meeting. And I explained to you why, guys. I told you this is part of my communication plan for risks, because when I noticed as a project manager, whenever I have a project status meeting, usually the discussion is dragged by the technical discussion, from the team members, or value achievement, from the sponsor, the stakeholders, and not really enough time to talk about risks and discuss them. That's why, already after my first or two projects in my career, I decided that I rather have a separate risk management meeting where we go through the risks, because keeping the risk register updated on daily basis, maximum on weekly basis, is really one of your keys to a successful project. Now, not many people pay attention to this sentence, which I have repeated in every training I have conducted in project management. I always said, and I repeat, keeping your risk register updated on daily basis. I don't joke, on daily basis, because on daily basis you might identify new risks. Maybe some of the identified risks will have higher or lower probability, higher or lower potential impact, which means of course higher or lower risk score. Maybe some of the risks are no more valid or existing. Maybe some of the risks become residual, etc. Really, dealing with the risks is a daily job if you really want to have a successful project. Okay, how to prioritize the risks and what are the risk prioritization criteria? We will go through this and we'll see the basics of this in the next session, and how to empower stakeholders and the team and help them, encourage them to share any potentially or any identified new risks. Okay, and what if in case you will have any education strategy, or let's call it a training plan for them. Okay. All right. And the last task in this first domain is about planning and leading the the risk management activities with the stakeholders. So in this task, we will learn how to collaborate with the team that would conduct the risk planning on the project. Now, here we're talking a lot about the self-organized, self-managed team, but also we're talking about the traditional teams being led by the project manager. Okay. Now, how to leverage the stakeholder analysis, the stakeholder input by the project manager, or done by the project manager, how to leverage those analysis done by the PM, by the stakeholder, how to leverage them. We mentioned again the risk appetite and attitudes, because we can have stakeholders with a positive attitude towards risks. Some of them are with negative attitude. Some of them are supportive. Some of them are not. So even the status of the stakeholders could create new risks for you. Okay, this is something PMI focuses on a lot in the RMP exam, which is really, how your stakeholders could either support you in managing your project risks or could be a source of risk themselves. Okay. Engaging the stakeholders in prioritizing the risks. And here also for risk prioritization, we will see different techniques on risk prioritization, whether in waterfall or in agile, because they are a little different, not so different, just a little bit. Okay. How to set the appropriate expectation levels with the stakeholders on the rules of engagement, like how often and how much would you like your stakeholders to be engaged with you in managing the project risks. Okay, how deep do you want them to be involved? Do you want them to be involved just with the high level risks, and if yes, how high these risks should be? Again, we go back to defining the thresholds, and who or whom among these stakeholders should be involved. Is it just the sponsor or the sponsor and key stakeholders, or are you going to involve the customer? If you're going to involve the customer, in which type of risks, just commercial risks or even technical risks, or do you need to have some representatives from the customer to help you with the technical risks, for example, etc. So actually PMI is asking about all these in the RMP certification, and you will see that when we go through that in the next or in session 3, actually, with the mock questions. Okay. All right. How to tailor the communications, or risk communications for stakeholders. Again, we go back, to the reporting and also the different meetings. Do stakeholders want to attend, particular risk management meeting, or, they require certain and particular information about risks in the reporting. And, we will talk about that, on a high level. So, stay tuned for session 2. It's quite important. Okay. And then how to train, coach, and educate the stakeholders in the risk principles, because oftentimes many stakeholders don't differentiate actually between a risk and an issue. I remember once there was this case with the accountant in a company who called the senior manager, and they said, "Oh, we have an issue." And the senior manager said, it was a lady, "What's the issue?" And the accountant replied, he was a man, you know what? Our main supplier actually is about to bankrupt. So she asked you, did they bankrupt? And the accountant replied, no, not yet. So the senior manager replied, so actually that's not an issue. That's a risk. Now, whether it's a high risk or a moderate risk or a low risk, it's still a risk. The accountant was actually surprised, and they said, it's almost certain that the supplier will bankrupt because they have received this huge fine from the government. Actually, it was the Ministry of uh, Commerce, or Trade, as it's called. And it's almost certain they will bankrupt. And the senior manager replied, exactly, almost certain. So as long as it didn't happen, it's still a risk. So actually, even having the right terminology, with the stakeholders is quite important, because not all of the stakeholders, they can differentiate between an issue and a risk. Okay. So in order to create a shared understanding of the principles, also the processes, and here I will stop for a moment. Because actually, as a project manager, I have suffered a lot, with this. And let me explain to you how have I suffered a lot. I remember, in many projects which I have managed, when my team and I have identified, for example, several risks, we know that some of those risks were really high level and they needed a response plan. And those response plans, they cost money. Uh, so, we presented the response plan to the stakeholders, and we asked for approval. Uh, and many times some of those stakeholders, they said, so risk is an event which did not occur yet. And I reply, yes, that's correct. They say, okay, so for this risk A, your team are requesting to implement this plan, which will cost, for example, 50,000 euros. And I reply, yes. And they say, so this stakeholder says, so you're asking us to approve 50,000 euros for you to implement or to spend as part of the risk response plan for a risk which might not happen. If it might not happen, then it's like, we just lost 50,000 euros. We just threw them in the trash bin. And our answer was always like this. And what if the risk materializes? So isn't it better to take precautions or some preventive measures and try to mitigate the probability or the impact of the risk, and in case it materializes, or actually we're mitigating the risk, so we try to make sure that it wouldn't materialize, and if it materializes, at least it will materialize with really very minor or minimal impact, rather than not do anything, and in case it materializes and for example it would have a significant impact on the business, such as it would create a blocking issue or a catastrophic issue for us, then only then we will be regretting not implementing that risk response. So really, this was always a struggle. And really, believe me, guys, I'm so grateful to PMI. I'm so, so, so grateful to PMI for creating such a curriculum of certifications as this one, the RMP, because it's really so important. It will help us really ensure success, in our projects. Okay. Uh, and keeping the stakeholders engaged in risk management is really important, depending again on their roles, their level of power, and their level of interest. Okay. All right. Now, the second domain, and this one has got four, if I remember well. Yeah, this one has got four. So let's finish the second domain, take a 10-minute break, and then we go back to finish the next three domains, and then have a look at the risk guide. Now, the second domain and this ECO on which the RMP certification and exam are based is the risk identification. And I love this one, really. I love it so much because that's where talents are actually shown. Talent actually is shown. All right. So how to conduct a risk identification exercise? Who is supposed to identify risks? What are the different tools and techniques to use for identifying risks, such as meetings, interviews with experts, okay, focus groups with subject matter experts and other subject matter expert support activities, performing detailed risk analysis of the risk identification exercise results, like analyzing those details, verifying the quality of the data, which I have mentioned already earlier, is quite important. And then analyzing also different documents, transcripts, telemetry data, etc., and understanding the different business context of information, and also defining whether those identified risks are threats or opportunities. Okay, are they going to potentially harm the project and the business, or are they going to potentially benefit the project and the business? Okay, so that's task one. Task two is examining the assumptions on which the project was based on, or parts or aspects of the projects were based, and also analyzing the constraints. All right. So we will learn that full RMP training, how to categorize the assumptions and the constraints, assessing the risks associated with each consumption constraint, and also recognizing the different relationships between them, and also the project objectives. Okay, such as, for example, in case there will be any holidays or any dismissals in the project related to the stakeholders or the team members, or in case there will be any changes, for example, again, contracts, laws, changes, having a new key stakeholder on a project, changing the technology. All of these are always a major source of risks. Okay, and also, and this is something really important. Whenever we have to learn that whenever there are assumptions and constraints, there are risks. Okay, and the obvious, or the most obvious, or the most fundamental risk coming from assumptions is, what if these assumptions are wrong? What if these assumptions are wrong? So actually, that's the first risk that's usually identified when you have based your project on assumptions. So and so engaging the stakeholders to deal with these assumptions and constraints and challenge them or validate them, that's something important you need to do as a project manager. And we will see different questions depicting these different scenarios. Okay, task 3 in the second domain is about documenting the risk triggers and thresholds, depending on the context or the environment. Now, we mentioned earlier triggers and we mentioned earlier thresholds. So here, how compliant are we in our risk management plan with thresholds? Because oftentimes it happens that a risk was identified, it was qualitatively assessed, we have determined the probability and the impact and the score, and we have seen that the score actually exceeds the threshold, and yet we haven't put in place any action plan, any mitigation plan. Why? Because actually some of the stakeholders challenged us and they said, yeah, based on their experience and history, yeah, these risks are usually, of a high level, but they never materialize. And, implementing an action plan is actually a waste of the project's resources, for example. Well, while we do understand what they said, maybe we have trust in them, but that's not what the risk management plan says. The risk management plan says if you have a risk that exceeds, okay, the threshold, you absolutely need to implement an action plan, a mitigation plan. If you don't, then you're breaching the risk management plan, and that will be detected during the risk audit. Okay, we will see later on about the risk audit for closing the risks. Okay. Um, Okay. Uh, and then, assessing, documenting the risk triggers. We cannot have a risk without a trigger. What are the possible causes? Why did they happen? When did they happen? Okay. Also, what would be the risk consequences, potential impact, and again, empower the stakeholders to challenge the existing thresholds if necessary, whether it's the PMO or senior management, etc. Okay. And then finally, the last task in this second domain is about building and developing a risk register and definitely maintaining a risk register, because what you don't want to do as a project manager is actually to build your risk register but to forget about it later on in the project. Okay, so only validated risks with their respective triggers will be included in the risk register, and we will go through our own risk register template, and you will see that we always have to mention the trigger, qualitative or examining the attributes of the risk, such as probability of impact, probability, potential impact, and the severity or the urgency, maybe sometimes also the criticality of the risk. Okay. What is the risk origin and who is going to take ownership of the risk? Is it going to be somebody from our internal stakeholders, internal team, or somebody external, such as, for example, a customer representative, because they're the most qualified, for example? Okay. And also categorize the risks, whether as threats or opportunities. This is quite easy, actually. We will go through that in session 2. Okay. Okay, so we have just completed the introduction of the first two domains of the exam, which were, setting up a risk strategy and a risk management plan. That's actually domain number 1. And domain number 2 is about identifying the risks. Now, what I suggest is to take a 10-minute break. So let's take a 10-minute break right now. Okay, I will not stop the recording. I will not stop the session. I will just mute myself. Okay, we will take a 10-minute break and then we will come back and continue with the next 3 domains. Okay, domain 3, 4, 5, and then we will look at the risk management guide. Right. So, okay, let's continue then with the content for this session one. Now we will go and talk about the third domain of your RMP exam, which is about analyzing risks. Okay, and I probably heard me mentioning earlier, about performing qualitative risk analysis, and more advanced analysis such as the quantitative ones. Now, of course, once the risks have been identified, then first thing we need to do is to have a nominal classification of the risks in the risk breakdown structure. Okay, and then of course, with the qualitative risk analysis, we will estimate the impact. First of all, the probability of occurrence of the risk, and defining the probability of occurrence can actually come from different sources, such as historical data from an expert opinion, mathematical calculation, or any other source of analysis. Nowadays we can even depend on the artificial intelligence for analyzing the potential probability, or the probability of the potential occurrence of the risk. Okay, and then as part of the qualitative analysis. And by the way, guys, for the artificial intelligence, I'm quite sure that in the next few years, PMI will help us understand better and more how to actually to involve the AI in managing the risks, analyzing the risks, identifying risks. Because once technology is involved, it will help humans, because humans sometimes forget about identifying risks. Okay, but technology, once it's trained and programmed, actually it will help a lot, the project manager with identifying risks. Okay, then as part of the qualitative analysis, we also estimate the potential impact of the risk, and always the potential impact is on the project schedule, scope, first of all, schedule, budget, resources, and also on the expected value to be delivered. That's quite important. Then, once the probability and the impact are known, then the risks can be prioritized, and we will see next week in the next session how we will do that. Then we can apply the different risk metrics, such as, for example, the agreed upon assessment approach. I've already mentioned some historical information, or pre-established criterias, such as, for example, sometimes in some projects we have a pre-established criterias for risks, and we know that for this type of project there are always these types of risks. Okay, and for these types of risks, this is how we consider them, this is how we analyze them, this is how we evaluate them. So again, this is the kind of things which you will see in your risk management professional course. Perform an original classification of your risks in your risk register, and also make sure that your stakeholders do understand the different risk categorizations, and also involve them, because they can be quite supportive, with any new risks, for example. Okay. Now, once you're done with your risk qualitative analysis, you have determined or classified, not classified, ranked your risks, ranked your risks based on their, you know, priority. Then you can move on with performing more advanced analysis, such as the quantitative risk analysis, for mainly for those prioritized risks, because quantitative analysis usually that consumes resources, time, and you cannot do an advanced analysis of all the project risks. So usually we do the quantitative analysis for those prioritized risks. Okay. So here in the quantitative analysis, what we usually or what we will learn is how to validate the data against the established metrics, uh, and perform a forecast, a trend analysis, and another important technique, which there are few questions in the RMP exam about it, which is the sensitivity analysis. There are, I think, usually a handful of questions about the sensitivity analysis, and a little more advanced content about Monte Carlo, decision tree analysis, also, establishing a relationship between the risks and the critical path or the activities on the critical path, the expected mortality value analysis, which is quite important in order to determine, the reserves which should be set or put on aside for the identified risks in case they materialize. Okay. And also, performing weighting and calculating calculations in order to determine the risk priorities. Okay, so this is a risk quantitative analysis. Then task 3 is about identifying the threats and the opportunities. And you will notice in the full RMP course that actually identifying the risks and assessing the complexity of the risks in the project. They can come from SWOT, from Ishikawa as well. Even though Ishikawa is a root cause analysis tool, it still can help, with determining potential risks, not just from lessons learned, but generally as a tool. The tree diagram as well, okay, for determining risk complexity. Performing an impact analysis on the project objectives. I have already mentioned this, like on the project scope, cost, schedule, resources, quality, stakeholders, other attributes, and objectives from the project. It can even go beyond that, such as to, the potential impact, on the market share, on the sales, and in the RMP exam there are a few questions about these. Okay. And then we come to such an important point in the project, which is about the project compliance. So, assessing the project compliance objectives against the strategic objectives, such as compliance with procedures, plans, governance, regulatory governance. And about this regulatory governance, there are quite some questions in the RMP exam. And again, quite important to empower the stakeholders to help identify potential threats and opportunities. Okay. A lot of stakeholders, they're isolated, they don't participate in identifying the risks. And this could be such sometimes a loss in value and potential for the project and the project manager and the project team. And that's why, involving the right stakeholders in the risk identification is really important. Okay. Now, this is for the third domain, which is about analyzing risks. Okay. Now we come to a very important domain, which is, planning for the risk responses. Right. Now, which appropriate response strategy would you implement for your risk, whether it's a threat or it's an opportunity? Now, for threats, are you going to avoid the threat, accept it, mitigate, transfer, escalate? And for the opportunity, are you going to exploit, enhance, share, accept, escalate, etc.? Okay. Depending on your contingency plan, of course. So, how limited are you in the time, or how, in a hurry are you in order to implement the risk response? And here, when we will study next week the risk types, we will see, the urgency of the risks. Okay. And also for the risk response, you need, as a project manager or a risk manager, to assess the effectiveness of the risk response. against the identified strategy, and determine the impact on the cost, on the schedule, and the environment, and the effect of the actions on the probability or the risk impact. Did you manage to, decrease the probability of occurrence, or, try to decrease the potential impact if it happens? Okay. Um, how to effectively communicate about the actions we're taking towards the risks. How can you show the progress on the risks? We will see the risk burn down chart. We will take some examples, the dot plots. We will take an example about the dot plots as well. Okay. In case we need to establish a workaround, and workarounds usually they are for issues when they happen. Okay, or work around in the meaning of avoiding the risk. Okay, now how to assign a risk owner to the risk response, allocating responsibilities, and making sure that very well described in one of those responsibility matrices. Okay. And of course, how to evaluate the organizational risks and their potential impact on the project. The second task in this fourth domain is about implementing the risk response, how to effectively execute the risk response, execute it on time, how to build the plan. And you will see, guys, that in the full RMP course, that building a response plan is very similar to building a plan, how to handle a task or a requirement, whether it's in waterfall or in agile. And in the RMP exam, actually, there are questions depicting this, which is, about a team, which are about a team, which have identified uh, certain risks, and the question is about how the plan should be conducted. Okay, and it's going to be the same way how tasks are planned, deliverables are planned, etc. Okay, and actually, about this, I remember myself always emphasizing, mainly in the agile framework, on how actually really to not just prioritize the risks, but also be able to include the response plan as part of the sprint plan, because that's something the teams struggle with, which is how to include a risk response plan in a sprint backlog. Okay, knowing that the risk might materialize, might not. So teams not always are used to building a risk plan as part of their project plan, especially in agile. So that's something that some project managers, risk managers are struggling with. Okay. Also, you as a project manager, you might want to take into consideration the feedback of the stakeholders on the response plan, how they see it, if they're confident with it, if they support it. Okay. And of course, if they're as part of the once the risk response is implemented, there might be some secondary risks as a direct outcome of the response plan, and also maybe some risks will be considered as residual. They will just remain. They will not go away. So what would you need to do with them? And how to handle them? What's the right action? How to handle them? All of this we will see that briefly in the next session. Okay. Now, the last domain in the RMP exam is actually the monitoring the risks and closing the risks. Now, closing the risks, that's something really we project managers need to learn, in a tough way. Okay, we need really to enhance our skills in closing risks, because not all project managers know how to close risks, and not all risks can be closed. And if there will be any unclosed risks, whether they are residual or not, then how to handle that, what to do about them, how to report on them. So this domain 5 about monitoring and closing risks. If it were up to me, I would put monitoring risks in a separate domain and closing risks in another separate domain. But PMI, didn't want to do that because to be too much or too many domains actually. So the first task is about analyzing the different performance data about the risks. Okay, so collecting all the performance data and also reports from the relevant work packages, plans, backlogs, etc., and check the performance in the execution of the plan to mitigate the risks. Okay, how to in this part also, it's easier to deal with risks in waterfall, but it's quite challenging to deal with risks in agile because reporting on the risks on the team performance, how to know really how the team performed on the project plan with the plan of the risks mitigation and without the risk mitigation plan. That's quite a challenging, how to distinguish between the different story points, the ones allocated for, risk plan, mitigation plan, and the ones allocated for building the project backlog or the sprint backlog. So yeah, yes, there is quite some content to learn in here. Okay. Also, in this first task, we will learn in the first course on how to analyze data to determine the status against the baseline, or the different baselines actually. And in case there are any variances, how to determine the variances, how to report on the variances, and also how to monitor the impact against the overall project risk exposure to the company, to the department, and to achieving these strategic goals. Okay, so this is for task one. For task two, which is quite important, and it's about monitoring residual and secondary risks. Residual risks, they don't go away, they remain. So how to monitor risk response. And how to keep an eye on a residual risk, how to monitor risk response for a secondary risk. Now, secondary risk is always treated as like a new risk, even though it's related to a primary risk. Okay, and how to respond to that, and again, if it will go away or it will remain. How would these residual risks impact the overall project objectives, how to keep the stakeholders aware of them and involve them, engage them actually, and is there going to be any special communication of the residual and secondary risks, even how to report on them in your risk report, because I remember we project managers in our risk report we always had this part called residual risks. Okay, and it's management usually challenged us about residual risks. Some managers thought that because we were not effective enough with our risk response, we considered that particular risk as residual, and it's like we were just covering for ourselves, which was not true, to be honest, because residual risks, they remain no matter what we did. So actually, it's not like we were not effective with our response plan, then we consider that risk as a residual risk. There are some characteristics, and that goes back to the what we saw earlier about the risk categorization. There are certain characteristics that need to be present in a risk in order to be considered as a residual risk. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about this in the coming session. Okay. Task three in this last domain in the exam is about updating the project documents, like aggregating, summarizing the risk data, in the risk register, the lessons learned. Very important, to keep, this practice about updating the lessons learned, the project management plans, any change logs, and also, relate or link the different risks with their impacts on the business realization plan, for example. It's not put in here in the ECO, but actually it's part of the exam in one or two questions about the risk realization plan. Okay. And in case there are any expired risks, like, they are no more valid, they're called expired risks. They don't represent any threat anymore to the project, then how to close them out and how to report on them. Okay. And the last task in this domain is, once we have dealt with the high risks, now how to move on to the next level of risks, the medium risks, the low risks, how to, reevaluate them, reassess them with their levels, how to report on them to the different stakeholders, and how to really closely follow up with them. Now, something we project managers don't want to do, definitely, which is forgetting about those low level risks, because we think, oh, those are low level, we don't want, or we don't need to pay attention to them. Actually, that's not true, because a low level risk can turn in any moment to a high level risk, in case it changes its or in case its probability goes higher, or in case its impact goes higher. Okay, so actually from this ECO you could see that, on a high level there is quite some content, and that's what justifies the 30 hours or the 40 hours training content. Actually, I personally, when I create the RMP content, I relied a lot on practical situations, on exercises, not just mock exams, because, all those different tools and techniques for analyzing, for defining the types of risks, etc., are quite important to learn. Okay, so basically, this is the ECO, which I went with you through right now in this first session. Okay. So I will put this on a side. So it will be good for you guys to rewatch the recording of this session. Okay. So this is the ECO, actually, ECO exactly. All right. And now we will go right now. I hope, guys, you can see this clearly. We will go now to the guide, the practice guide, the risk management practice guide. And this practice guide actually is released quite new in 2024. And it's applicable in portfolios, in programs, and definitely in projects. And by the way, in the RMP certification, there are some questions about handling risks on a program level and a portfolio level. Absolutely. Yes, more than 70% of the questions are on project level, but still there is some small percentage of those situational questions about, handling risks on a program level, on a project, on a portfolio level, and even on a company level. So there are those questions which we call the generic questions, which are about risks just on a company level, generally overall. Okay. All right. So this guide actually, we go, we skip these initial pages. Okay, and just go straight to the table of content. I just want to share with you the table of content. So let me just, yeah, exactly. So we will just go through the table of content. Actually, we will not go through the guide itself. We will not go through the guide itself because it contains 165 pages. It's not quite big, to be honest. And it's very, very helpful. If you're preparing for your RMP certification, reading this guide is really quite helpful. All right. So, chapter 1 is an introduction, purpose of the guide, approach of this practice guide, who are the audience for this practice guide. So actually, I just want to go to the audience, just for the audience, to be honest. Okay. now who this practice guide is for. So it says here, this practice guide provides guidance to stakeholders participating in a portfolio, a program, or a project. This includes, but is not limited to, portfolio managers, program managers, project managers, project coordinators, project practitioners, generally project practitioners, which means anyone, practicing project management techniques on a project. Not necessarily as a project manager, not necessarily as a project coordinator. It could be as a project team member, for example, okay, or a project management team member, okay? Project planners, business analysts, they deal a lot with risks. Risk managers, now risk managers this is more of an operational role, but it can be sometimes on a project. Risk consultants, um, consultants overall, subject matter experts. Now, here's the new part: agile practitioners, people practicing agile, because I noticed that many companies and many agile practitioners, like agile coaches, scrum masters, product owners, they didn't pay big attention to risks actually, because risk management was not or is not part of the culture of their team or their project team, and that and we have noticed that actually in agile, risk management skills are missing. That's why PMI now with this new guide is actually emphasizing on the importance of managing risks on an agile project as equally as in a waterfall project. Product owners, you see, I have mentioned them here. Uh, Agile practitioners, agile consultants, product owners, sponsors, and vendors who work on portfolio program project or initiative, either full or part-time, work in a portfolio program project management office, are responsible for identifying and are managing the risks of an initiative on a portfolio program or a project level, teach or study risk management, and are involved in any aspect of the project value delivery chain. Now, that's what project management is built and based right now, built and based on right now, which is about creating and delivering value. So now everything we're studying in project management since 2021 is really about this: how to identify the value, create the value, or build the value, and deliver the value, the expected value, the business, whether it's a business value or a financial value, or any type or any sort of value defined. Okay. So that's what project management is currently based on, and we're waiting for for the next update of project management from PMI. Okay, so this is the audience for this practice guide actually. So we want to help you with this, guys, so you would know actually who is this guide for. Now here we have the principles of risk management. Striving to achieve excellence in the practice of risk management. Well, yeah, it's exactly striving to achieve excellence. I don't know if you can ever achieve excellence, but we're striving to that. Aligning risk management, which is quite important, with the organizational strategy, the governance practices, and the project management performance domains. Now, the project management performance domains here, you need to refer back to the PMBOK guide, version 7, the 8 performance domains of the project management, which are um, stakeholders, team, delivery, development approach. Then you have planning, performing work, uh, delivering value, uh, measuring the performance, and the uncertainty and risk. So these are the 8 performance domains in project management. How to focus on the higher risk value. Okay. How to optimize risk responses to focus on value realization. Oh, this is quite important one. I really like it so much. Okay. This part of page 4. Fostering a culture that embraces risk management. navigating complexity using risk management to enable successful outcomes and value realization, continuously improve risk management competencies, quite good one, through coaching, training, and mentoring. And then we go to chapter 2, the context and key concepts of risk management, like key concepts, definition of a risk. Let's go to definition of a risk, okay? Just to put you in the context, okay? About let's see what is the definition of a risk now, okay? So it says here a risk or an individual risk is an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, it it will have a positive or a negative effect on one or more project objectives. Now, for example, a positive risk, which is an opportunity, is a potential upcoming change in a policy that could benefit a project. Okay. However, a negative risk, it can be described as an unanticipated increase of labor cost or material cost, which may cause the project to surpass the original baseline budget. So in this case, the problem becomes more specific with a casual factor instead of just stating that the project will be over budget. And here we are depicting this by various scenarios and various questions, very similar to the ones you might get on the RMP exam. Okay, so an overall risk is the impact of uncertainty. So overall risk is the impact of uncertainty that affects organizational objectives at different levels or aspects. Okay, so risks generally they can arise from different sources of uncertainty and assumptions, such including individual risks on a portfolio or at the portfolio program and project levels. Okay, so these risks generally they represent the exposure of the organization and its stakeholders to the consequences of uncertainty regarding the organization's strategies and business objectives. Now, once the risk occurs, it is then managed with the various governance layers by dividing the resulting outcomes. Okay, so so this is actually what the definition of a risk, and you can see that this guide is assigned to Ahmed bin Hamouda because actually I've obtained it through my license. Okay, it's not for distribution, sale, or reproduction. Anyway, we will see about that. Now let's go back to the table of content. Actually, let's just continue reading it. Yeah, so we define the risk. What's the risk attitude? What's the risk appetite? What's the risk threshold? And what uncertainty means, which is the opposite of understanding. If something is not understandable, cannot really be analyzed, cannot be understood, then it's called an uncertainty. Then how to manage risks in how do you define risk management in the organizations and at different organization levels, on the enterprise level, on the portfolio, program, project levels, and the risk and key success factors. Okay. Then framework for risk management, business context of risk management in portfolios, programs, and project management, organizational framework, organizational context, strategic and organizational planning, linking planning with execution on these different levels, scope of who's accountable, who's responsible, and the authority level on the enterprise, the portfolio, the program, the project level. Guys, you probably know the difference between them. We talked about them before in our different project management courses. What's the difference between a program, portfolio, and project? So a program is a group of related projects, and a portfolio is a group of programs and projects which are not related. Okay, and the enterprise is the highest level. Okay. Then general approaches to risk management, like which factors to consider, for risk evaluation and responding to risks. Okay, and then the risk management life cycle. Now, this is quite an important one. And here we will have a case study about the compact wind turbine project. So that's a good one. Actually, now the risk management in adaptive, predictive, and hybrid, and also integrating the risk management and organizational risk management, how to escalate risks. Then the organizational project management and its application in risk management, and actually how risk management is impacted by the organizational processes, how to plan for risk management, the purpose of planning risks. And here we go back always to, we have a case study, which is tailoring, scaling, and this compact wind turbine project. Key success factors with with the examples of this case study, because actually if you manage to understand this case study, then you'll be able to respond to the different situations in this RMP exam. Identifying risks. What's the purpose of identifying risks? Key success factors for identifying risks, and then again the same case study to illustrate what you have learned in here. Performing qualitative risk analysis, and key success factors for performing such analysis. All right. Then performing quantitative risk analysis, the purpose of such analysis and the key success factors, planning the risk responses, and again we go to responding to threats and responding to opportunities, and the same case study about the compact wind turbine project. Okay. Then what's the purpose of planning risk responses and key success factors? And then we go back to the case study. Implementing the risk responses. What's the purpose of implementing risk response and key success factors? And monitoring the risks, okay? All right, the purpose of risk monitoring and key success factors, and illustration with the case study. Then we take the risk management on a portfolio level on a side, okay? First, we start with the interconnectedness of risks in portfolios, programs, and projects. Now, here's some key new things. Actually, these are on advanced level, such as risk efficiency and risk return trade-offs. Then the guide goes through case study, then risk exposure in the portfolio. What's the role of the portfolio manager? And risk efficient boundary and organizational strategy. Then some illustration with the case study. Then emerging trends in portfolio risk management and illustration with the case study. Then was the life cycle of the risk management in a portfolio. Here, how to identify risks on a portfolio level, because it's different, to be honest. It's different than on program level, and it's different than on a project level, okay? The roles, the responsibilities, the types of risks, even the magnitude of the risks, the impact of the risks. A portfolio level is quite large, quite big, is different than a project level, okay? Then a quantitative and qualitative analysis on a portfolio risks with illustration with the case study, planning risk responses for a portfolio risk, implementing the risk responses and monitoring the portfolio risks, and then integrating the risk management into the portfolio management performance domains. Okay. And here for the portfolio management performance domains, you can refer back to the PFMP certification and its related ECO and other textbooks. Okay. Then on the program level, again, is the same structure almost. Okay, on the program level. Okay, distinction and challenges in program management, understanding what program risk management is, sources, nature, and types of program risks. Then bridging the risk management gaps among portfolios, programs, and project levels, since the program actually is in the middle between portfolios and projects. How to manage a program overall and individual risks. Okay, and this we repeat in the projects later on. We will see it. Okay, achieving flexibility and resilience in program risk management. Then risk management implementation challenges in programs. Life cycle of risk management, like starts again with risk identification, then qualitative and quantitative analysis, and again we go through this compact wind turbine project case study, deciding response strategies, implementing response strategies, and monitoring risks on a program level. Okay. Then how to integrate the risk management plan into the program management performance domains. And again, you can go back and refer to the ECO of the PGMP certification, strategic alignment, benefits management realization, stakeholder engagement on a program level, governance framework, and collaboration. Okay, and then the life cycle management. Okay, then yeah, the little view actually, not overview, little view on the program activities. Okay, and then probably the most or the biggest part is the risk management in the context of project management. That's the biggest part, actually. Okay. So here, the guide goes through the risk management gaps among the project and higher levels, establishing these we saw earlier, so I don't want to repeat them, like establishing risk thresholds, addressing risks from higher and strategic levels and breaking them down to the lowest level, which is on a project level. Project level risk interfaces with operations. And that's actually something we didn't talk about until now, which is risk management in operations. I mentioned only at the beginning of this session when I said actually in the full RMP course, we distinguish or between the project risk management and the operational risk management because they're a little different. Okay, so it's not the same as managing a risk on a project level and then on operational level. Okay, um, the life cycle of the project risk management, enhancing risk analysis, involving the right participants. And again, it's the same like a case study. And again, the risk identification, qualitative and quantitative analysis, building or defining risk response strategies, implementing risk responses, and monitoring project risks. Okay, and all the time going through this case study. Here we will go through, this is quite an important part actually, the integration of the risk management into project management processes, the initiating process of the project, the planning process of the project, the executing process of the project, monitoring closing process of the project, and closing the processes. Now, in all these different processes and parts of the life cycle of the project, how to actually integrate the risk management in them, and then the project risk management controls. And actually, that's almost it for the guide in the first 100 page. Here you have, references, then appendix about the contributors and reviews of the risk management. Okay, that's just contributors for this content. And almost that's it, here just techniques for risk management framework. It's like, these different techniques which you will see in your RMP course, techniques used for identifying risks such as assumption and constant analysis, brainstorming, Ishikawa, checklist, Delphi technique, expert judgment, facilitation, historical information, interviews, prompt lists, questionnaires, root cause analysis, SWOT, and pre-mortem of the project. Then techniques for qualitative risk analysis, such as affinity diagrams, analytic hierarchy process, influence diagrams, nominal group technique, probability and impact matrices, risk data quality analysis, assessment of other risk parameters, and system dynamics. Then for the quantitative risk analysis, like the contingency reserve estimation, decision tree analysis, estimating techniques applied to the probability and impact, the EMV, expected monetary value, failure models and effects analysis, the fault tree analysis, the Monte Carlo analysis, the software computer-based analysis, and any evaluation or review techniques on a project or a program level. Okay. For planning risk responses, contingency planning, force field analysis, multi-criteria selection technique, scenario analysis, simulation techniques, and for implementing the risk response, like monitoring the risks, techniques for monitoring the risks, like, data analytics, reserve analysis, residual impact analysis for residual risks, risk audit. We didn't talk about it much earlier, but it's about auditing the risk process, the RBS, risk reassessment, sensitivity analysis, status meeting, trend analysis, variance analysis. Okay. And that's it. That's exactly it. That's all the risk guide for projects, programs, portfolios, and a little bit on a company level. So it's not that long. Actually, this guide is just 165 pages. And just, I just wanted to show you something actually. Let me just go down to chapter 4. Exactly. This is the case study, the compact wind turbine project. So let's just quickly give you an idea about this case study, which you will see in the guide, because definitely, an important part of the RMP material is based on this guide. So here it says a regional municipality has embarked on an ambitious project, which is the compact wind turbine project, which aligns with the municipality's strategic objective to embrace sustainability, contribute to carbon neutrality, and promote regional development, as depicted in the next uh, figure. Okay. Here, so we have the enterprise, we have the green portfolio and the parks and recreation portfolio. Then the green portfolio has got an energy program, a public safety program, and a carbon data app project to create an app for this carbon data. The parks and recreation portfolio has got two programs, and the program one has got two projects. And for the energy program, it's got the wind turbine project. Okay, and that's actually the main core of this case study. So the efficient, eco-friendly wind turbines, already common in both developed and emerging economies, are said to empower rural and remote areas, aligning with the strategic objectives with a strategic objective. As per the strategic plan, the wind turbines will supply sustainable energy to various sectors, including communities, businesses, schools, health clinics, individual households, and farms. The adaptable design allows these turbines to meet specific requirements, reinforcing the strategic focus on fostering local innovation while promoting global sustainability standards. Now, guys, remember something very important. Most of the questions in the exam of the risk management certification, they are scenario based, situational questions. So that's why, PMI always, tends to, be more innovative in terms of the guides, and would like or tries to put you in real scenarios or project situations so you can better answer um, the questions in the exam. Okay, so however the project faces various risks. Now that's where the fun begins. All right, including design inconsistencies, technical difficulties, cost escalations, and regulatory challenges. And you can see how important the compliance with the regulations is for PMI. Okay, because actually there is regulations everywhere, even with our data, like the GDPR, for example, the global data privacy regulations, even with AI. AI is being regulated now in most developed countries. Okay, so compliance with regulations plays quite an important role in PMI's mindset for most certifications. Environmental uncertainties, such as unpredictable weather and potential supply chain disruptions, add to the complexity of the project risk landscape. Effective risk management is integral to aligning the project with the strategic vision. Now, here we have a list of the stakeholders. So the stakeholder group is diverse and includes the municipality, the energy management department, local community members, environmental sustainability advocates, media representatives, the project manager, material suppliers, subcontracting agencies, and agricultural landowners. Each stakeholder has a crucial role in managing project risks. Now, that's an important part in PMI's mindset in this in regards to this certification. Now this sentence is quite critical, to understand this case study and to understand PMI's mindset, in managing risks overall, because each one of these stakeholders actually is playing a different role. You have the project manager, you have external stakeholders, you have internal stakeholders, you have people on a program level, on a portfolio level. So each one of them is playing a crucial role in managing the risks. Their contributions will be key to strategically driving the project toward its ultimate goal of promoting sustainable development and energy independence, thereby aligning the project with the municipality's broader strategic plan. Now, this is a first introduction to this case study, the first part, to put you in the context, okay? And then, with this case study, PMI continues, actually, um, yeah, and uh, yeah, it made this guide quite entertaining, to be honest. Okay. All right. Okay, of course, I cannot go through this, all of it. What I wanted to do in this first session, um, yeah, actually, I wanted also to share with you this risk management lifecycle framework. So, the risk management lifecycle. So, first of all, planning the risk management, which is, setting up a risk management plan, identifying then the risks in the risk register, checking, of course, the source of the data, then performing the qualitative risk analysis, determining the impact and the probability of the risk, the score of the risk, and the priority of the risk. Then, for this prioritized risks, perform quantitative risk analysis, such as the expected monetary value or more or other advanced technique. Then plan the risk responses if in case of it's a threat, what to do with it in case it's an opportunity, what to do with it, and then implement the risk response and monitor the risk. Now, if you master these, I think 7 steps, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, these 7 steps, then you will do really good in the exam because now the exam is all about these steps, but then it's about also understanding the different techniques and steps in each process step. Okay, tools, techniques, etc. So really, this one here, the risk management lifecycle framework is what you need to absolutely master and know by heart. Okay. Uh, yeah, I think this is all what I wanted to share with you. Yeah, these are all things we will see in the next session. Yeah, okay. Good. So, actually, yeah, this is just the last part probably I wanted to show you, which is about the risk management on these different levels. This is the risk management on an enterprise level, on a portfolio level, on a program level, and on a project level. And of course, at the same time, there are these operations. Now, we cannot have a business or a company without ongoing operations. So not only you need to distinguish between a project and an operation, but also you need to understand how to handle and manage risks because actually this figure here, it helps you understand how risk management is being done across levels and different activities in the organization. Now, it's not quite the same as in the PMP course and certification, which focuses on the project, with just sometimes in the PMP exam, just a few questions about program or question operation or portfolio. But here in this risk management, it mainly focuses on the project level, but also you need to understand how to define risks on a portfolio level, break it down onto programs and projects, and how to handle the dependency and relationship between them. Okay, so that's something you definitely need to know. Um, yeah, uh, yeah, these are like the most yeah important probably parts, and this is what I wanted to share with you in this first session of this free sessions about the risk management professional certification. Okay. um, yeah, so next week in the next session we will talk in details about chapter, actually is going to be about this part. Let me just show you. It is about risk appetite. Let me help you. So actually, session 2 is going to be about this part, which is chapter, no, not this one, chapter 7, yes. So next session is going to be mainly about managing risks in the context of project management. And we will have actually small parts about portfolios and programs, operations, and enterprise level. So we will have definitely a few slides about the risk management cycle in portfolio, in program, on enterprise level, and in operations. But let's say 80% of the content of session 2 of this program of free sessions is going to be about risk management in the context of projects. Okay, and we will see even some techniques from from this appendix number 2. Okay, we will see some techniques, not all of the techniques, because it takes 30 to 40 hours. Actually, 30 hours actually it takes to go through these techniques, but we will see the main ones, at least the main 10 techniques, which cover about 80% of the techniques in the RMP certification. All right, I think this is it. This is what I wanted to share with you in this session. I've shared with you an introduction to PMI's RMP certification. We went through the RMP ECO, and we had a quick look on the table of content of the risk management guide for portfolios, programs, and projects. So I hope that, guys, you have liked this session. I hope it was not long. I really wanted to make it as short and easy and simple as possible, because I know that the next 2 sessions are going to be long. So please stay tuned. Next session will be quite long, and the third session will be quite long. And I will be injecting some practice questions in between content, same as I do in the PMP course. So just to keep you entertained, guys. Thank you so much for following with this first session, and I hope to see you on session 2. Okay, have a nice, great rest of the evening.